So, how to stand out from the copycats? Tuesday, fantastic day. I am looking at my parents' pool in the backyard, drinking agua fresca, which I made. This is cucumber lime. No, I love to make everything, and I love my delicious drinks. I often don't speak on the event of it being summer because as a resident of Hawaii, I'm just used to it always being bright and sunny. So I believe in always having a lovely drink. However, I entitled this Stand Out from the Copycats because I've seen this trend. And to me, a trend is just something that has started, that others are influenced, or influence isn't the word. Maybe, yeah, let's just say influence. And this AI trend, which is somewhat cool. However, I like to speak of it from the point of individuality and how often something will occur, or we will see something and be influenced to try it. And the beauty of that, especially if you're an artist or just as an individual, you may come across a person who has a personality or a style of dress or something that you were influenced by that you want to implement in your own life and what that looks like. However, I see it in an additional space of just the ability to take something and try it for yourself for some sort of gain. And what does that look like? There's the saying that we are all born individuals, but we often die copycats. And what that looks like for us. I believe individuality, what's up, Lynette Marshall? Individuality is the spice that creates that secret sauce. It is that secret ingredient that keeps people coming back. It is that element of je ne sais quoi that allows people to say, I like this. I'm going to keep doing this. However, I believe we all have something unique about us, special about us, that is only in us that others don't have. And as a speaker, I have seen many people doing, yes, hi Mag, happy to see you. There she is in all her glory. I am here. It is interesting to me to see others taking on this trend and using it for themselves. And what does that look like in your own life? Meaning, what does it look like to see something that appeals to you and implement it for yourself? Does that mean that you just do it the way you see it, or do you implement it in your own way? Thank you, MDW. I appreciate that. We are all influenced by things. Someone may be influenced by something they hear from me or see in me. It does not mean that it needs to be reflected exactly. In fact, I believe influence is a part of life. You see something and you're influenced and you tie it into your own life. However, to directly replicate it without putting your own spin, without putting your own sauce, without putting your own personality in it, I think loses the flair. There is a statement that says everything under the sun has been done. However, when you do it with your own spin, with your own flair, with your own recipe, that's when you make it yours. So you won't see me doing any sort of AI trend. Although I kind of look like a robot with my head shaved, so maybe I'd be great at it. However, the deeper statement is to be influenced and to add your own element, I believe, is what's captivating. To take something and just replicate it from what you see, thank you, Twisted Jax, may be missing out on the point. The point is to see something and be influenced and add your own speciality to it. If anyone saw me on here doing this AI trend, you would definitely say, wow, why is Hope doing that? I believe in whatever I am, whether it's my voice, whether it's my look, it's me. However, I am often influenced by things. I just do it the way I want to do it. Whether it's dressing, whether that's showing up in the world in a certain way. Yes, to be influenced is something. Stay influenced, stay open. Stay open in the effect of I see something in something else that I would like to implement in my life in my own way. Thank you, Twisted Jax. Amen. But what is it to be you? I say that all the time. What is that? Can anyone in the chat say what that means to be you? Because it's often said, but I don't know if it's implemented. Because we show up in different ways every day. The way I show up today, if I'm rested and hydrated and in a clear headspace, is completely different how I would show up if I'm not rested, if I haven't eaten, and if I haven't done what I need to do to show up in my clearest headspace. Well, of course. However, that's normal. I will say this, and I'm going to step onto my soapbox. I can say in a space of showing up as myself because I'm confident in myself. But what does that mean? I often joke and say I don't really care what the outside world says because I know what my personal inside world is saying to me. I know what counts for me. And it's quite simple. I bless tones, sometimes that happens. That's okay. I jokingly say I have 2 parents that love me. That's important to me. If it's not important to another individual, I understand that. I feel good. I've hydrated myself. I've eaten nutritional foods today. I've worked out, stretched, done my journaling. I'm in a clear headspace. However, if I did not know what it takes for me to feel at my best in my inner world, that will show up in the outer world. That will show up as meaning maybe I don't feel like I'm enough. Maybe I need to take on the trait of this person. Maybe I need to take on how this person dresses within my own space. Maybe the way I talk isn't acceptable and I need to change it. And that's a beautiful space. That's a beautiful space of saying, I don't actually feel confident in who I am now. I don't frown upon that. I believe that's a beautiful space for transformation. For simply admitting, hey, how I feel in this moment isn't how I want to show up in the world. What I'm receiving from others, what I'm receiving in life, isn't what I want to receive. What do I want to receive? How do I think I can receive it? What changes do I need to make? Do I even know how to make those changes? All of those questions to me. And here's my disclaimer. This is my truth. It is not the truth. It is a truth in a world of truths, in a universe of truths. But if it resonates, sure. If it does not, sure. And I'm confident in saying that as well. So, anyone in the chat, I'm speaking of how I've seen other individuals take on this AI trend, which, sure, show up as you. If you today is saying, using a flat iron to pop popcorn, I think that's fantastic. This isn't to tear down anyone that feels something is working for them. However, there's a beautiful element in seeing something and adding it to you within your own flair. What's up, Jazzy Tones? Nice to see you. But that can only happen when you actually feel that confidence within your inner world. That confidence within how you show up in that world. Your confidence in your speech. Your confidence in everything you do. And that's a constant thing. This doesn't show up and it just stays. It does, Ivan. It does. How do we get to that spot? How do we get to a point where if someone says something disparaging to you in that moment, that it goes over your head? I often believe it comes from just asking questions. Where am I in my life? Where do I want to be? Am I there? Do I feel like I'm on my path? What's up, Vanessa from Mississippi? What's up? What's up? What's up? How can I get there? Do I have the resources? Am I surrounded by the people that can get me there? Or do I need to just start over? Do I want to just reimagine what I am? And this comes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm always on a beach. I'm always in the sun. I do my best work in the sun. So thank you, metaphorical fun. I am a person who loves redoing what is me. Oftentimes it comes with a hairstyle. You will often see that. But I share this because I have felt at times stuck, stagnant, just in a space of not how I want to show up. And I believe all of these spaces are powerful. To ask yourself, I feel stuck. Great. Because then you can look and say, all right, where do I want to go? What would it feel like to be unstuck? What would it feel like to have movement? What would it feel like to be flowing in the direction that I want to be? To actually take a pen and paper and ask yourself, or look outside of yourself and say, what is it that I see in the outside world, in others, that I want to implement in myself? And I saw something from a creator that said, write down everything that you want in a partner and become that. Yeah, well, that's what it is during summer, but I live in Hawaii, so sun is just the sun. The sun is always sunny. How to become what we want. One of the biggest things to become what you want is to understand that it will be uncomfortable. And you can label that discomfort in any way. It's going to be uncomfortable because others may say, I knew Hope and she wasn't doing that when I knew her. So what? How do you feel? It will feel uncomfortable because you may not feel that you're on firm, steady ground when you're transitioning into this new space. That's a part of it. It may feel uncomfortable because you don't even know if this is the direction that ultimately you want to end up at. So what? Your life is your experiment. And just know, I learned this from my therapist. She would say, people are often just thinking out loud. They are observing and thinking out loud. So if someone sees you and says, wow, that shirt, I don't like it. They're just thinking out loud. It actually has nothing to do with you. And the more confident, the more trusting, the more you lean on what you are, the less that will affect you. And that takes time. That takes time. I often have responses, especially here on TikTok, with my hair. Now I have really curly, thick, full hair naturally. It's great. However, I don't have to stay with it. It's hair. You'll always come back. And I appreciate how I shift into a different perspective when my hair changes. But I'm open to the shift. Thank you, Jazzy Tones. I appreciate that. Yeah, then visit. You don't have to, you can just visit Hawaii. Go. If you have a vision to do something, do it. It takes no confirmation from anyone else other than yourself. And I will always be the first to tell you that. The comfort in just the shift. The comfort in the shift is the win. Because to shift means there's unfamiliarity. And this all comes from this AI trend. I think it's fun. I'm just surprised to see so many individuals try it for a reason that is backed by commerce. If that's what fuels you, sure, this isn't a knock on anyone. The fact to try out something that is unfamiliar is beautiful. However, there's certain people that are always going to stand out because they may do it with their own personality. They may actually be convincing, and you can tell the difference. You can tell the people that actually believe in what they're doing compared to someone who says, I just want to try this to maybe make some money. Either way, it's all good. To me, an individual has their reasons, and that's enough. It's never about the judgment. It's the fact that just go try. You may make something out of it. And what you learn from it is the biggest space. However, to be open to the shift, to be open to discomfort, to be open to what others may not understand about you is a powerful space. Because once you do that once, you can do it several times. I remember when I first moved to Hawaii, which was 4 years ago, I had mentioned to a friend of mine who was a flight attendant at the time that I was moving to Hawaii. And the individual said, well, I don't think that that's the best thing to do. And I said, okay, what does that have to do with me? That was really my response. What does your opinion Why does your opinion have any effect on what I'm doing in my life? Now, if I have an insecurity in me, or if I have a small inclination that what you say is true, that may affect me. That may actually trigger me. I don't know what that means, hi bad. Do you mind answering a question for me? How much do a 1-bedroom, cars in the hallway? I don't know what that means. So clarification would be fantastic. However, I don't know what that means. And we could talk about that because everyone sees money differently. Let me just say this. I don't do or move anywhere because of money. I would not move somewhere because of the thought of it being inexpensive. Ideally, I don't want to do anything cheap. I don't, a 1-bedroom cars in Hawaii, I don't know. Exactly. I don't need, I told this to my mom. Why would I listen to you? After my travels, the 60 countries, multiple languages, just me challenging who I am, why would I listen to anyone outside myself? Because I've known what I have done. I've known the transitions I've came through. I know the things that I've grown from. So for me to ask someone who has never done it for their opinion on how to do it, I may need to sit and ask myself why I'm doing that. I may need to ask, why would I ask an individual who's never taken this on, who never actually has taken on the discomfort of leaving something familiar, if I should move somewhere? And I would challenge you to think about that. Why does the opinion of other people matter so much to you? You were born to do great things. In fact, you were born to challenge your own greatness. Because you can always better your best, but that's up to you. What's great to you may be an unforeseen dream for someone else. So for you to share with someone the goal that you have, they may just tell you about their limitation and how dangerous that can be. Because if you ingest that, you may not go after that dream. And that dream may have your name on it, and you accomplishing that dream may allow others to accomplish theirs in whatever they do. Again, high, bad. It depends. A roundabout estimate, I can't even. Side note, I can't give you an exact number because my prerequisites for where I live is my prerequisites. So even if I gave you a number, it's not the average. It's only with what I want. Thank you, Jazzy Tones. Listen, I'm one of 5 girls. And I was just speaking to my mother that I show up with this confidence because I saw my mother show up just as herself. I saw my mom really show up in her beauty. I saw her wear makeup, mascara, blush, lipstick. I never saw her with extra accoutrements. You're welcome, High Bad. And I will touch on that again. However, here's the other thing. If you want to do it, go. What you want is for you. It's never about, I don't know if I can afford it. You can afford it when you go for it. If money was a factor, I wouldn't have lived in the 5 cities that I've lived in. If money was a factor, I would have never said, okay, I'm moving to DC. I'm moving to London. I'm moving to Paris. I'm moving to New York. I'm moving to Hawaii. I don't think about that because guess what? Thank you for the heart. Money is the number one factor that stops people. It will stop you dead in your tracks because you'll make the assumption, I won't have it. It's not for me. And that could never be working in my favor. You don't know what's for you until you try. Not everyone in the cities I mentioned are living in multi-million-dollar places. And I'm lucky. Everything that comes to me is perfectly for me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. When I moved to Hawaii, I knew what I wanted. When I moved to Hawaii, and I spoke about this, I was still a flight attendant. I had just came off of a transition in life where I was on a plane and we had an emergency landing, meaning I was the head flight attendant on the flight, and I received a call from the captain saying, Hope, our left engine is going out. We are doing our checklists. We will have to make an emergency landing. I will phone you back as soon as we know click. Do you know how quickly your life changes when you hear something like that? After 15 years of flying, I had never received a call like that. This is why I show up in this way. I don't say I can only do something if I think I can afford it. I can afford it because I dream about it. I can afford it because I come from people that say life is to be lived and it's to be lived more abundantly. I don't go through life saying, I think I can do it. I know I can do it. That's the craziest thing about me. I go through life knowing what's for me is for me, and I will create it. I always have. I don't need to know the how. I didn't know anyone in Hawaii. I didn't know anyone in London. I did know someone in Paris. I knew quite a few people in Paris, but it was never that these people allowed me to get there. I make my way. If I'm going to wait on somebody, it's not going to happen. for me. I am the change maker. That is my belief. This is why I so poignantly and so passionately say, do it. Don't wait for me to tell you to do it. Just say it's for me, so I'm going. That fear may be there. Go. That uncertainty may be there. Go. That discomfort will definitely be there. Go. Learn to change that into the trajectory that you want. Most of the time, what's for you is for you, but you won't know until you allow it to be for you. I don't go somewhere and say they're not going to like me because of my skin tone. I say the opposite. They're going to love me. What's not to love? I'm hope. What's not to love? I'm not going to stay limited in this life. And the fact that I've traveled so much, I have such an expanded perspective that I know life is lived in so many different ways that I am able to create exactly what I want, how I want. I just believe it. The more that you do it, the stronger that becomes. If people don't understand you, so what? People aren't meant to understand you. Get used to that. The moment that you accept that people won't understand what's for you, allows the world to open up. And I'll speak specifically to women of color or anyone of color. Never be limited by what someone has told you, by what society has said what's for you, by your hair texture, by the manner of you speaking. None of that matters. What matters is, what do you think of yourself? How do you feel about yourself? Why do you believe what someone told you is true for you? Why does any of that matter? What matters is you believing that you can do it. Will it be uncomfortable? It will. That's a part of it. Growing from that discomfort creates this bravery that makes you unstoppable. And I often speak about this because, again, being a flight attendant for 15 years, you're welcome, right? Living in these countries, learning a language, challenging myself, challenging the structures that have been in my mind, allowed me to say, none of this stuff has ever been true. I get to tell myself what's true. I get to tell myself I'm beautiful. I get to tell myself I'm worthy. I am absolutely fantastic, Queenship. I get to tell myself I'm worthy. I get to tell myself what is for me in life. It's not anyone outside of me. The fact that I believe what someone tells me, that's a great place to start, because that's where these layers start to be shed. Sometimes you gotta shed these layers, and shedding the layers just means that you accomplished something that you didn't even know was possible. Because once you do it once, it creates an element of, whoa, if I did this, can I do it again? And then you do it again. Whoa. So what's next? What else can I do? And it just snowballs. There may be failures, but I don't even believe in that. A failure is just a lesson while you're learning it. I don't even think of that. And I was having a conversation with a friend who, exactly, just go. Just go, Jazzy Tones. Just go. But a lot of these mofos don't know. They will tell you their limitations, which means I'm afraid of that. Someone told me I can't do that. Someone I saw tried to do that and they failed, so I think I could fail. So I'm going to tell you that you're not worthy of that. So what? That's okay. I understand why you would say that. It doesn't mean anything to me. Even what I would label my failures are wins. That's how I look at it. I will say I'm a master of innovation because I choose to create my life. Who you're seeing today has always been here, but it's taken time. It's taken time. I remember I'm at my parents' home currently visiting my family in California. And I remember telling my dad, listen, I'm going for my interview with the airline. And we had traveled as a family. My father loves travel. He loves the outdoors. I've been to most of the national parks in the U.S. I had flown in business and first class with my whole family of 6 and seen how my father operated in that world of travel. So I was always confident. However, when I told my father I was applying to the airline, he said, well, why would they hire you? I didn't care. For a moment I did, but then I said, you know what? It could be that he feels uncomfortable because one of his daughters is really going out into the world. I don't know, but watch, Dad. I don't care what you think. I care when I get that certification because it's happening. You gotta build that. You gotta have that armor of strength for what's for you. It's normal for people not to get it. It's normal for a parent or a sibling not to get it. It's normal for your friends not to get it. And I remember I had a close personal friend of mine who said, you're working for the airline? Why would you do that? They don't pay so much. I know a friend that did it. And I said, girl, so here's the other thing with money. It is about money, but it's not. Because at that moment, I'm 22 years old. Do you know how wealthy it is to travel the world and it constantly expand your mind? There's no amount of money that I would trade for that, for the people that I've encountered, for the experiences, for the different social structures, how I started to break down how I saw myself. Of course, yes, but how firmly do you believe that you can do anything? People will tell you that, but ask them, why do you believe that? What have you done that's proven to you that you can do anything? I like to challenge myself. How can I speak to people and say you can do anything if I haven't even seen it for myself? And with this young woman, with my friend who said I wouldn't do that, she had just turned 18, 19, had a child and was going back and forth. And now one of her best friends is about to go and travel the world. I would have said the same thing too. That means you're going to leave? I don't have a free babysitter. You got about to travel the world and see these men all around the world and leave men in the countries that you found them in? I would say, I don't want to do that too. You got to understand what's for you is for you, but to truly live that is something different. For me to learn a language is one of the most powerful skills that I've learned. And it's difficult. I see myself as a master communicator. To know how to communicate in another language is difficult. What's even more difficult is not being able to express that. You can feel this energy and this power because I don't have to think about the words that are coming out of my mouth. English is my native language. But for me to be in a space where I consciously have to stop, thank you for the gift, and think about the words that I'm saying and how to conjugate a verb and am I saying this right? There is a lot that goes on when you learn another language. It was uncomfortable for me. It, in fact, has been one of the most uncomfortable spaces in my life because I love to talk. And not being able to say what I want to say because I don't know it. Or I'm afraid that the person may critique me. Or I'm afraid I'll say it incorrectly. Was a true space of discomfort for me. And it took me telling myself, Hope, you're going to mess up. Just say it. Hope, that's a part of it. That's a part of learning. Just say it. Hope, ask the person, how do you say X, Y, and Z? It's a learning curve. And furthermore, for anyone who has or is or wants to learn a language, individuals love the fact that you aspire to learn a language. They will help you. They will help you. Oftentimes, I've only seen English speakers criticize someone who is trying to speak the language, the English language. Furthermore, English is a very difficult language to learn. What's up, Zach? What's up, Portland? I love Portland. I have a story about Portland. I used to fly Portland all the time. And I would often be there for the naked bike ride. The naked bike ride. I've been there twice during the naked bike ride in Portland. However, English is a difficult language to learn because there's not rules. It's very relaxed compared to other languages where you must conjugate a verb or do X, Y, and Z. English, there's a lot of rules that just are unspoken. However, for me to get past that is when I really started to learn the language. And how beautiful that was. How accomplished I felt having a language and speaking it. How accomplished I felt when I would travel with my niece or friends and be the translator. How accomplished I felt to start another language and know that that learning curve is there, but it's a short amount of time. Same thing with any goal in life. With any goal in life, it's only a short amount of time where that discomfort is there. You get over that and then you just start feeling more comfortable with it. But that's within us. Once you're disconnected from what's outside of you, you start to soar. And that disconnection comes from truly being at peace in what's for you. If someone laughs at me because I aspire to have another language, that has nothing to do with me. Maybe that's their discomfort. I don't know. I don't even take that into account. But that takes work. And that confidence only comes from building who you are. And that can change at any time. I tell my nieces, you can decide who you want to be every day. You can change it up. Oftentimes, we feel like we can't because of who's outside of us. So what? So what? So back to me being with the airline. After my emergency landing, which I did not go into fiery blaze because I'm speaking to you now, I did have, and I've spoken about this, post-traumatic stress disorder for probably about 3 months. It may come up at times, but I have a great therapist. I've worked through it. So after that, I really wrote down, why do I feel so uncomfortable? Is it because of transition? Because of death? No, I know that will happen. The real discomfort came from, yes, thank you, Sunlight Skydance. The real discomfort came from, if that was it, in my obituary saying Hope 15-year career flight attendant, period. That's what really scared me. Not flight attendant, author, speaker, philanthropist, all these other things that I knew I wanted to accomplish, but I was too afraid to say start. That fear was there. So I wrote down, I started making a list. What do I want? What do I want my legacy to be? What do I want people to say when I'm not here, if they say something about me? What do I do the best that I would do if someone were not to pay me? What do I do? What do I love to do that I would do without payment? And it was speaking and teaching confidence and just speaking with a confidence that opens the world. Play, yeah, that's true as well. Where do I want to live? Am I living where I want to live? I have, but I was currently living close to the airport. I was living somewhere out of convenience. I will never do that. I will never do that for me. And when I said, okay, I want to live on an island near a beach, get specific. Do I want to live near a cold beach like New Hampshire or the coast of England? Sometimes settling is okay. You settle until you no longer want to. This is the thing. A lot of these cliche statements I don't adhere to, because often they're said, but they're not implemented by the people saying them. This is also why I don't listen to people, because they will tell me, never settle. You did. I see you settled in your relationship, you settled in your career, you settled in every way, which isn't, thank you very much, which isn't a negative thing. However, what does that look like for you? For you. I settle until I no longer want to. And I know when I'm ready to transition or shift or challenge myself. But it comes down to the challenges for me. My comparison isn't anything outside of me. It's me. That is a beautiful space. And it can be the most challenging space because you only have yourself to hold accountable. And you know when you're not holding yourself accountable. You know when you're not showing up. You know when you're settling. You know when you're not in the space that you don't want to be in. And you know it's up to you to change it. And in reality, it's always up to us to change it. It's not about anyone else. I often speak of how it always comes back to us. You know, I always have a lovely beverage. I made this yesterday. It's agua fresca, a cucumber lime agua fresca. And yeah. However, what's up, Michelle? However, if it's up to you, you get to set the rules. You get to say what's for you. And I would stress not to limit yourself, because I believe I live in a world of unlimited possibilities. I don't limit myself. This is why if you say, what's your favorite place? I don't have a favorite. They're all my favorite. I'm my favorite. Yes, but what does that mean? What does that mean? When you say we create our own destiny, what does that mean? Because I've heard it said, but what does that mean for you? Does that mean I can only move somewhere if the rent sounds like something that I can afford? Does that mean I can only move somewhere if my friend comes along? Does that mean I can only accomplish this goal if someone else agrees with me? No, it always comes back to you. And that is the easiest and most difficult space, to say it's on me. Nothing can stop you from what's for you. And actually ingesting that and saying this is for me, there's nothing that will stop me from having it, is a position of power. But I don't know about that. My family is always around. I can call them. I have no obligations. Again, I am not in a space where I'm obligated to do anything because of a family member. But you would create what that means for you. I believe if I was in a relationship, I've said this before, if I'm in a relationship and I'm going to move to a different country, or there's a opportunity, be it business-wise, I'm going to do it. If my partner is restrictive of that, they will no longer be my partner. However, I've never had a partner who has said, that's not for you, because I don't want to do that. I've been lucky enough to only have gentlemen in my life that have always said, go for it. Outside of that, I am not currently with a spouse or children. So that is out of a realm for me. What is that? I keep hearing all sorts of stuff. However, I'm not obligated. I'm obligated to myself. So that may be a space that I would have to sit and think about, because I'm never obligated to anything outside of me. And especially if it's a sibling or a parent, I can call them on the phone or FaceTime them. That is not an obligation for me. Even being a flight attendant, that was never a place of restriction for myself. However, that would be a space that you could sit with, and whatever practice that you have, whether it's a religious practice or a spiritual practice, or just speaking to the family member about what you choose to do. To me, love is never restrictive. To me, that's one of my pillars of love. Meaning, if someone loves me, there would not be restriction to what I seek. But that's for me. We all have our different definitions of what that means. However, I've said this before. The dream is the blueprint. Listen. All right, Michelle, I'm calling you in. If you have guilt, and I have to actually look that up, because there's a difference between guilt and shame. I don't care what anyone outside of myself thinks about the decision I make. Again, I am not married and I am without children. So in that space, there is no one that gets to tell me what's for me, ever. I only move without guilt. I'm not asking anyone for confirmation, ever. You can ask my parents. I mean, I will tell them what I'm doing, but I'm never asking anyone if what I'm doing is right for them. Because that means I'm actually seeking validation from them. And I'm never doing that. Yeah, I'm not seeking validation from anyone. The validation is me. And thank you. However, what's the other option, Michael? Thank you for the rose. What is the other option? And this has come from cycles, many times of doing this. I can speak in this positive, assured tone because I've done it many times. Also add into the fact, my parents know they can't tell me much. Even as a child, I wasn't going to listen, I'm going to do it anyway. I was always I happened to be in a space of catching on pretty quickly. So in school, I accomplished great grades without doing much. I know how to learn. I love to learn, and I love the ability to learn new things. I'm always learning. I'm always reading. I'm always, when traveling, experiencing new things. I'm very flexible. I'm very malleable. I'm not restrictive. So at this point, what someone, especially a family member, thinks about the choices that I make, especially into where I live, that don't mean nothing to me. Again, that's your restrictions. It doesn't have anything to do with me. And confidence is key, but what does that mean for you? If I only have confidence because you agree, that's not confidence. If I only have confidence when other people say that's a great idea, that's not confidence. I'm really safe in the space within myself. I'm really safe and confident and self-assured within my space. My validation is within myself. And that may take time. Also, the people that surround me are typically in that same realm. Yeah, and what does that mean? I can say that after several goals being achieved, but what does that mean? Confidence is trusting yourself. That's a difficult space if you've always been told you can't do this. I will only support you if you do X, Y, and Z. If your guardians or parents said you need to only do this profession and then you do it, that breeds the opposite. However, this isn't new for me because I come from a set of guardians that never said that. They said, we've given you the tools so you can choose to show up how you want. I haven't had people say, you have to do X, Y, and Z, or we take away this, or we don't love you, or we don't respect you. Okay, that don't mean nothing to me. I've only had the guardians that have said, we just love you for the spirit that you are, regardless of how you show up. Now, I have quite high expectations for myself. I treat myself well. I do trust myself. I like myself. I love myself. I believe in myself. I'm constantly showing myself that I can achieve these things. So that translates into what you hear. If I didn't practice those, it may show up differently. And it's all a space of, where am I currently? I don't believe there's any negative space in life. It's all assessing where we are and seeing where we want to be. And there's beauty in every position. If the thought of, I feel guilty when I do something for myself, that's a beautiful space to say, why do I feel that? Why do I feel I have to give others my best instead of giving it to myself? It's a beautiful space of transition. What's up, handsome? Good to see you. I will always give myself first. I will fill my cup first. I have no reservations about that. In fact, I've often said this. As women, we have been given this story that we must give to others before we give to ourselves. I don't abide by that. However, that may work for someone. I believe when I'm in my clearest headspace, when I feel my best within my own mental capacity, spiritual capacity, physical capacity, then I'm in a space to be in concert with others. Thank you. Yeah. Are you back on live? I have to come into one of your lives if you're doing a live, handsome. Again, exactly, but what does that mean? If you're questioning, does my family need to be on board? That may mean, hey, let me check my cup. Let me check that I'm not dishing out to others before I'm dishing up myself. And that takes time. Unraveling what we have been told or told to think or told to feel, to be a responsible person, to be a good family member, to be a good mother, brother, sister, daughter, aunt, that is defined by us. And I also believe for me to love others really starts from my love of myself. The reason why I can be of non-judgment or strive on a daily basis to be of non-judgment for others is because I don't judge myself. That takes work. Yeah, saying no is powerful. I love it. And to be comfortable with it. Even that there's something that I use when you say, what up, what up, what up, what up? Love you too, Andre. To say no and then just close your mouth. Because oftentimes we'll say no and then follow it up with a reason why. You don't need to give a reason. My therapist would say no is reason enough. I don't need to give you a why. I don't need to. Do you want to come out with me? No. Thank you. That's it. No, I feel tired. No, I don't need. Listen, that comes back to a worthiness factor. All I need to do is what's best for me. If you feel uncomfortable and say, Hope, why not? Hope, you always say no. Hope, that has everything to do with you. You can continue to tell me these things. Eventually, I'm going to walk away, or I will put up a boundary, which looks like, listen, I care about our friendship, our relationship. However, when I tell you no, and the response is the reasons why it doesn't work for you, the reasons how many times I've said no to you, I don't feel like I'm being heard. Therefore, when this happens again, I will walk away from the conversation. That's addressing it, that's setting a boundary and telling you what will happen in the next case. That's it. And expect people to push back. Most people don't even have boundaries for themselves. They don't even have boundaries for themselves. And you can see it in different ways. Portion control. I cook for myself often, and I will make a portion for me. And I had a friend who said, wow, you'll just eat a handful of chips and then you'll put the bag away. I could never do that. Well, look into that. Because if you can't set a boundary for yourself in that space, it may be difficult for you to set boundaries for others. There's a saying that how we do one thing is how we do all things. Now, these sayings are often, they just sound good, but sometimes they can show up true. Yes. This is all relatively new spaces for myself, maybe a couple years, maybe within a 5-year span. But I feel my best when I show up for me, not when I say yes when I meant to say no. That's your first question. Why do you keep saying yes when you want to say no? That's a great space to start. If you're consistently telling people yes, when you want to say no, that may be a space of questioning why. Why am I telling people yes when I want to say no? Why do I feel like I have to appease others with my yes when I know I don't want to go out, when I know I don't want to be around people, when I know I don't want to be around you? A lot of these people you don't even want to be around. And I'll tell people, no, and I don't even want to be around you. Now, I've learned to be more compassionate, and at times that may not be the most compassionate space. I can keep that to myself. And I had a post that said, ask yourself 3 things before you share with someone. Ask yourself, does this need to be said? Number 1. Number 2, does this need to be said by me? And number 3, does this need to be said now? So whenever you want to share with someone why they should or shouldn't do something, or why this is right or wrong, does this need to be said? Does this need to be said by you? And does this need to be said now? Now, if all 3 of those are yes, feel free. But if you have even one no, that's not for you to share. And check this out. People have gotten to this moment in life just fine without you. And I shared this with my sister. I've gotten pretty far in life. I actually don't always need your volunteering of this help that you share. And I know it's coming from a great space. However, look at me in a confident way that she can figure it out. Not everyone needs your help. Most people don't. People are smart. They'll figure it out. They will. We have the capacity to figure everything out. And I often say, I am the solution. I'm always the solution. There's nothing I fear, because at times it will take that moment to happen for me to understand, oh, okay, I do have what it takes. We have what it takes to be the solution. I'm never fearing if I can figure it out. I've been into some pretty interesting, precarious moments in life. If I can figure out how to get around in life after being kicked out of a country, after being deported, after I have several stories that I could tell you about, I could probably figure out how to get out of whatever I'm in now. And I trust myself. Well, why is that? Is that because you have been told that you can't? Has that been because you just don't trust your own facilities? I don't know. I don't even believe I have the answers. What I know will change as soon as I learn something else. And I do believe I've experienced a lot, but so what? In all actuality, I don't know if any of this is helpful. That's where I would refer back to. But it's that openness that allows me to be resourceful. Knowing that I do have the facilities and to trust myself. And whatever that looks like. For me, it comes from really moving all over the world. I've done it. I've had to. Listen, the assumption is I make it look easy because I've done it so many times. But things are done differently all around the world. It's quite normal in France for someone to ask for 6 months to a year of rent up front. You would think that's abnormal if you're here in the US. However, that's normal there. I only know that because I've done it. So now I have an additional perspective. Or how difficult it may be to relocate somewhere. I only know because I've done it. I'm not going to listen to someone who would say, I would never do that because I only speak English. Well, okay, that's great for you, sure. I'm not against that. However, the things that you learn through these situations carry on in other roles in your life. So I can be more compassionate. So I can be compassionate and open to someone who is attempting to do something new. Really, in the space of learning a language, I can be open and compassionate when someone's practicing English with me. I know how difficult and how uncomfortable it is to communicate and not have the confidence within your communication. I understand that. I'm not going to say, I don't understand because of your accent, say this again. I don't even hear accents at this point. I have, specifically from working on the plane and living in places with large populations of people from all over the world, there's no such thing as normal to me. Normal is what you label normal. But that doesn't mean it's normal in a general term. I don't know what normal is until you share it with me. And I'm open to it. It's not even a judgment. However, to have that compassion to learn and just listen without a judgment or without saying, well, that's not how we do it where I'm from. So what? What does that have to do with them? That is the judgment in your mind, but in reality, that could be non-beneficial for someone else. And for myself to personally stay in a space of compassion means just to listen without judgment. Is this all the time? Possibly not. I don't know. I'm really in a space in life where I often say, I don't know. I'm in this space now of speaking, and at times growing that layer to be in the public and show up in this way is a new space, to say the least. However, it's just a part of it. I don't believe there's a such thing as normal, because normal is what's normal for us individually. What was normal for me, I grew up in a 2-parent household. All of my friends had 2-parent households. That doesn't mean that's the norm. That's just what I saw and what I categorized as normal or regular or expected for me. It does not mean it's normal for everyone. And it's actually quite limiting to expect that from anyone that I meet. That's just a part of my unlearning. Being able to be okay with just relocating or having a big dream and saying, I'm going to do this, and having the support of my parents. That's normal for me. That's not normal for everyone. And that's just a part of it. So I can have the compassion and the space of saying, I can understand how that can be difficult if you don't have the support of others. That blanket of support allows me just to go for everything. However, if you don't, I understand how limiting that can be, and how frightening that can be, and how unfamiliar that can be if people aren't saying, I support you. In fact, they're saying, that's dumb. I don't know why you would do that. No one does that in our family. I understand that. That's a space of compassion for me. But it's growing the space of compassion. And thank you for the likes, because this is a truth of mine. It's not the truth. I share this to show you where I am in my journey, and it's a part of my speeches of confidence. I believe we are all the same being in different roles in life. And often, because we are in limited spaces, we're unaware that others are going through the same things in different ways. Whether it's a relationship, whether it's restarting life, or starting a business, or starting a new job, or growing your self-esteem, or growing your confidence, or just growing your voice as a person. This didn't come overnight. These words, my father is an orator. All of the men in my life have been these great speakers. My mother is a poignant, powerful speaker. The women in my life, my grandmothers, have been these powerful, poignant, sometimes scary speakers, where when they said something, they meant it. I grew from that. I learned from that. So anyone comparing themselves to me, they don't understand. I've been around this my whole life. And then I've challenged myself. You know about some of these grannies and these aunties. They say something. If you go into the kitchen, don't go into the kitchen after I clean it. I'm not even going to test you, Granny. I believe what you say, okay? She done cleaned the kitchen. Don't you go into that kitchen. I believe you. I believe you. And I've implemented that into my life when I need to get a point across. However, I don't speak like that to everyone. Yeah. Now, with power or with control, what I learned, especially from my mother, her dominance was very silent. And I find that beautiful about the women that came before me. It was never about yelling and raising your voice. It was the element of power and an element of strength that was silent, that was just heard in their eyes or seen in the way they delivered a message. It wasn't cussing and yelling and All they had to say was, I've cleaned the kitchen. The kitchen is closed for the evening. And I knew I'm not stepping a foot into that kitchen. And how to implement that in my life. And how I learned to implement that when I was on the plane. because I started flying at 22. And a lot of flight attendants or a lot of people in aviation, once you start flying, people stay for years. It's an absolutely amazing career. So I had to learn how to settle disputes and confrontation, which I'm comfortable with someone who was my senior. That was a space of discomfort within me, because I was unaware how to speak to a woman who's 30, 40 years, sometimes 50 years my senior, in a way to settle a dispute. I wasn't used to that. I was used to hearing a woman who was in her 50s, 60s, or 70s talk directly to me or down to me without me responding in an equal tone. I had to learn that this is a colleague. Essentially, we're on the same level. That's within me, that I see her on a higher level. I don't have to yell. I don't have to say, I'm gonna beat you up. No, we aren't doing that. Listen, Barbara, let's go to the back alley and have a conversation. And this is how I would do it. Is there something that I did that allowed you to be in a space of discomfort? No, Hope. Okay. Well, I feel that our communication is off, and I want to be able to continuously work with you for the next 3 days. How can we settle this so we have an open line of communication and we can continue to work with openness, comfort, and clarity? I had to learn to get to that space, to be 22 and speak to a 65-year-old and settle a dispute or a confrontation. That was the space that I really had to grow into, just because of sheer age. Just because I was in a family that implemented elders in a certain light. Sure, but now I'm at a job. So whatever I learned about someone being an elder doesn't always compute for a colleague of mine, because this person may be older than me, but we are still on the same level because we're working together. And I learned this from my father, because my father would often say, you don't have to like anyone. You don't have to like everyone. However, you can get along with anyone, and you can. It's never about me liking you or disliking you. We must work together, which means we need to find a common ground. I don't take this personally. Anything within business, I never take personally. Anything within the exchange of commerce or money, I don't take that personally. Money is money. However, I do know that often individuals feel uncomfortable within business or talking about money. So if you can learn to take yourself out of it, you probably will be at an advantage. And this all comes down to communication, because we're always communicating. However, what you're saying is not always received. And there is maybe a difference referring to gender, referring to age, definitely referring to cultural standards. Working, I learned, especially while traveling, within the US, time is somewhat lax. Meaning if you have a meeting and you're 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes late, it's not really seen as a negative thing. Oftentimes, Americans will give you a pass. In Germany or in Japan, that is unheard of. You are definitely never late. Late is being there on time. And I know this because my company had bases in other countries. So I had to learn the difference in work experiences in working with people from other countries. For you to assume that everyone works the same, you are at a severe disadvantage. There's cultural differences in how you operate within management. I often think that American workforce is not really threatened by management. However, this is my opinion. Within other countries, there's a definite difference between someone who is your management or above you. You wouldn't ever speak a certain way to them. And that improved my communication. This is all a part of learning communication. And for me to say, maybe there's something for me to learn from this. Instead of saying they're wrong, they need, no. I turn this back to me. What can I learn from this? How can I be at an advantage? Because the moment I say it's them, I'm at a disadvantage. Because I'm seeing something where I'm not accepting my role. Or possibly accepting the fault. And that's a beautiful space. Maybe you are wrong. Maybe you are wrong. I remember when I was based and living in London, which was a great time, I would often meet individuals and they would say, hey, come to this private party, or this well-known person, come to this, or go to this, or come backstage, or come to my private showing, or you name the people. I've been in these rooms, and I would call in sick in a minute from flying. Listen, if this person wants me to be there, I'm going. I'm not flying. And right before I moved to Paris, I would often take the Eurostar or the quick flight to Paris to look for a space and then come back to London, because I was living in London at the time. And a lot of flight attendants will live somewhere and commute to their base. So when I was based in London, there would be several flight attendants who lived throughout Spain, throughout Germany, and then when we had to fly a trip, they would commute in to London, work our trip, and then commute back to their home country. Sometimes as far as North Africa, Morocco. There was a flight attendant who actually lived in Japan, but flew out of London. So they would leave 2 days prior to the trip. They would fly from Japan, because we fly without cost, into London, work the trip, and then fly back. There was a guy that lived in Bali, and he was based in London. So he would fly all his trips back to back, like a whole month of flying, and then be off for a month, because our schedules are very flexible. So I would call in sick all the time. This is when I was in the streets, no longer. And I remember coming back from Paris, and I had called one of the supervisors at Heathrow, because the ability to buy a ticket, a company ticket on Air France had changed, because we can fly on any carrier. If you're an airline employee, we can fly on any carrier in the world. Sometimes there's a tax or like a 7% charge, but it's really nothing. So I would often fly on Air France, and I had called a supervisor to say, hey, the ability to get a company ticket on Air France has changed. Can you help me out? They said, sure, Hope. However, it appears that you've called in sick so many times that we'll have to let you go. I said, oh, what? What? Because every time you called in sick, you would accrue points. So let's say one sick call would equal 3 points within the airline. And at, let's say, 30 points, you were let go. They wouldn't say fired, you were released. So he said, Hope, I'll give you the login information, but it appears you have 30 points. So we have to take you off the line, which means take you off your flying schedule, and you need to contact the union. And I said, now I know I've called in sick a lot, but not that much. Like, that's a lot of sick calls. So And I was in Charles de Gaulle. I was at the Paris airport, and I said, oh my gosh, if I'm let go right now, my father's in Mexico fishing, and what is happening with my life? Did I really call in sick that much? And so I called the union, because there's several airline companies that are backed by the AFA, which is the Association of Flight Attendants, or another union that speaks on our behalf when we come across instances like this. So I called up a friend of mine and I said, Robert, I think I'm fired. And he just started laughing, because he knew I would call in sick at the drop of a hat. And he just started laughing. He was like, what? I said, I know I haven't called in sick this much. I know I haven't. He said, well, contact the union. What this taught me was to check my work history. Because when I contacted the union, they said, okay, Hope, we're going to go over your work history. However, if you've called in sick that many times, there's nothing we can do to help you. If it is because you have a plethora of sick calls, there's nothing the union can do. Now, if it's a fault on the company, or if it's a fault of some way, we can help you. However, if it's just because you called in sick, girl, your job is gone. Okay, your job is gone. So what I learned in that moment is to check my work history, because once I did, I realized there was something that happened that was not taken out of my work history. And because of that, everything else that came into my work history was compounded. Meaning, once that was removed, I didn't have 30 points. I had like 3. But it took me having that happen to realize you got to check your work history regularly with any employment, because there just may be a mistake or a fault that you will not benefit from. And the benefit of knowing, okay, now every 3 to 6 months, I'm checking my work history just to ensure everything is in line. Because they got me sweating and upset because I thought I was going to lose this wonderful career. And I didn't. They almost got me, but they didn't. And in that moment, learning from that, instead of saying, they're always trying to get rid of us. Nah, that was my fault. I take accountability. I was always calling in sick all the time. However, it wasn't to the severity of that. Yeah, exactly. And it was funny. But what I learned in that moment, it was a shift. First of all, you don't need to be calling in sick. Do you need, what is it called? When you can take care of a family member because of their health, family medical. Do I need that? Is there something else that I can use so this doesn't happen again, in addition to checking my work history? There it is, FMLA. Yeah, FMLA, which I later had, because after my father had a stroke, we would all come and help out. But I turned that on to me. I had several colleagues who would say, that's the airline. They're trying to get rid of it. Okay, that's not a place of power for me. The place of power for me is, how can I prevent this from happening? What's up? Well, thank you. I'm quite wise, because I've been in a lot. You hear that? You hear someone saying, you about to be fired? No, I'm not. What do I need to do? I couldn't. No, I'm not. I got on the phone with the union real quick. What do I need to do? That's when I started doing more union work, because I had already done union work. I memorized our work rules. I became quickly abreast to everything I needed to know. I put myself in a position of power instead of saying, this is what they always do to us. Nah, I did this to myself. Sometimes you gotta say, this is your doing. How can you use this as a space of empowerment to teach yourself, maybe teach others, but to prevent this from happening? Right. Now I can work with the union. So if someone gets in the position that I got in, I can say, turn to page 30.1.BC to show you this packet. I learned it. And people would call me and say, hey, this is happening. I learned it. I'm never going to stay in a position of they're doing this to me. What am I doing for myself? How am I empowering myself? How can I make this work for me? And furthermore, instead of calling in sick, get your butt some FMLA, okay? Or change your trip so you have those days off. It's all a space of empowerment for me. I'm never pointing the fingers at anyone but myself. Because that's a place of empowerment. That's a place of empowerment. To blame someone else is not powerful for me, because then they control the story. They control the narrative. They actually control what happens to me. That's not what's going to happen for me. I get to control it. You see how powerful I show up? That's because I take it. That's for me. Oftentimes, I'll take all the blame. How can I change this to be in a place of empowerment where I can allow this to work for me? Because then it's always working for me. There's something to learn from everything. And I would hear other flight attendants say, oh, they fire people because they're sick. No. I've been there, and that's not what it is. Do you know how many times it takes to call in sick? And that's within a 12-month period. If you're calling in sick 15 times within a 12-month period, that's actually a lot. If you call in sick 15 times within a 12-month period, there's a reason for you to have FMLA if you're chronically ill. So you don't tell me that they fired them because they were sick. Nah, I've had that happen. So that's not necessarily true. And oftentimes people will repeat stories that don't always have complete truth to it. This is why I say I don't listen to people. People just be talking. They just be talking. I've been in these spaces. They overdid it. Now you need to find something to cover yourself. And I share this story to say, find a space of power. Find a space that can empower you. If that's learning a rule book, if that's being in a different position where you can empower others. If that's saying, maybe I am doing too much. Maybe I don't need to be at all these private events and maybe I am overdoing it. It's all how you choose to see it. But the moment that an individual looks and says it's them, you're not gaining, because they're controlling the power. And how powerful it is to say, nah, I did that. That was me. And what I learned from it was this. And that's why I learned the rule book, and that's why I became a union rep, and that's why, you won't see me calling in sick, and that's why now I'm a model flight attendant, because you ain't seeing me call in sick, because I've done that. And that's a part of life. Who I was at 24 isn't who I am now. That's beautiful. You continue to transition and change if you choose to. I don't think either space is wrong or right. It's what's right for you in that point. In that time. It's progress. I enjoy that I'm a woman. I enjoy that I'm a woman who knows something. Who knows something. I'm not 22. I don't pretend to be 22. However, what I know now is empowering. I don't believe that at 22 I was dumb. I just didn't know. I hadn't been in those situations. I haven't allowed myself to be in those spaces. So for every role in life, every year in life, I'm continuously changing, and I find that beautiful. You will never hear me say, I don't like aging. No, listen, I love every day, moment, year, decade of my life. Why wouldn't I? Because life is going to keep going. And my grandmother would always say, You're going to age. You might as well enjoy it. You might as well make it look good. You might as well learn and become that wise person where someone says, I trust what they say. I know what they've been through. I'm only competing with me, and I really mean that. I often have blinders on. I'm often ignorant to what's going on, like in a sense of entertainment and things like this. I don't have a TV. I read a lot. I meditate. I'm outside a lot. That is because that's how I best understand myself. And I often feel people are easily entertained because they're bored with their own lives. I'm not really concerned about gossip of an entertainer or someone else. I'm learning about me. My whole life is not spent on going to a concert. As well, I do like them, but I also enjoy my experience. I live a beautiful, full life. However, that means being quiet often. That means being in spaces where I'm uncomfortable. That means I'm around speakers that are where I want to be. That takes something, but it also takes me questioning, what do I want? What do you want? If you don't like what you have now, that is beautiful. Start dreaming. Start visualizing. And it can be as expansive as you choose it to be. The fact is that you allow it to exist in your brain, regardless of what others say. Because transformation is a beautiful element of the human experience. But how willing are you ready to let go of what you are to become what you are meant to be? Because letting go of your current circumstances and your current self, that's a full-time job. Then we did, definitely. We did, because I love Seattle, and that's where I had my emergency landing. We were leaving from SeaTac going to Dulles. So I was always, and I love Seattle, but I would have the long layovers. So the short layovers, we were at that, the DoubleTree, which I love the cookies. You definitely met me. And that airport, that hotel, you have to go across here to find this elevator, to go here to that airport, like that hotel. I would tell people when I was a purser, get up extra early, because getting out of this airport, getting out of this hotel, getting back to the lobby isn't easy. There's so many different wings. Yeah, then I've met you before. And I probably asked for 2 cookies, because I would always ask for those cookies. And I like the Pacific Northwest. So I would lay over in Seattle a lot, as well as Portland. And Seattle has a lot of restaurants I really love. I love Seattle in the summer. So yes, we have met. With the exception of when I was based, yes. With the exception of me being based out of Heathrow, because I was there for 7 years? I was based in London. You definitely met me. But all of those wings at that DoubleTree, because we laid over downtown near the Space Needle during our long layovers. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Because they would always say, okay, this is how you get to your elevator. You go straight, you're going to make a left and go down that corridor. At the end of that corridor, make a right. There will be an elevator. Get into that elevator. Like that hotel, which was quiet, which was nice. However, I do remember it vividly. And I do remember the bus that would pick us up, which was like this big bus shuttle. And I really appreciate Seattle. I love thrifting in Seattle. I would go all over. Like, I was not one to just, it is a very small world. I've met former gentlemen at airports all around the world. I've had people say, like, Hope, is that you? At Frankfurt Airport and Charles de Gaulle and LAX and Japan. I've seen people I've known all over the world. So the world, to me, is small, but that's because once you're in that air travel world, it's a different space. Time is a different space. I don't even like road trips because 7 hours, I could be in a completely different country. If I'm in a car for 7 hours, I'm not going to be in a car for 7 hours. I can tell you this much. Ain't nobody told me there was a cookie limit, girl, divine spirit guide. Nobody told me that. I would come down. Can I have 2 cookies? I would go up to my room, come back down. May I have 2 more cookies? Okay, go up to my room before we left. Can I have 4 cookies? I love those cookies. Sometimes people would leave them in the warmer drawer too long and they would get too crisp. But I love Doubletree's cookies. Let me tell you a little secret. I would go into Doubletree, not even be staying there. I wouldn't even be staying there, and I would go in and say, may I have a cookie? And they would give me a cookie, and then I would walk out and go about my day. I wouldn't even be staying at the hotel. I would say, oh, this is Doubletree. I know they have them cookies. I'd walk in, ask for a cookie, and then leave. I sure would. Absolutely. Sometimes I would walk in, ask for the cookie, and then go out the side entrance exit so they wouldn't see me go back out. But yep, I am her. That is me. I will definitely ask for them cookies. Yes. Well, in the morning, I believe you guys would have like, some hotels would have, especially in Europe, they would always set up tea and coffee stations for us and croissants and breads. Now, that's how people would get robbed, because specifically in Paris, and I've lived in Paris, I've been to Paris thousands of times, thousands. To me, in the US, pickpocketing isn't a big thing. Europe, it's a big thing. And specifically when we would land and lay over in Paris and most European hotels, hospitality is a little bit different. So as soon as we would enter into the lobby, they would have a station with strong, delicious coffee, because Americans do coffee. We do coffee differently than abroad. Fresh croissants, fresh pastries, as well as tea. Well, in Paris, there are people that know that crews lay over. So it would be like a 3-man team where someone would be outside, let's say, reading a newspaper, and we would enter. And when we enter a hotel, especially if you're coming into Europe, you've worked all night. So you're tired, you're awake, but you're actually walking around at like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. your time. So often the flight attendants, we have our own airline desk, which I miss. That's the one thing I've missed since retirement. I miss dedicated check-in desks at the hotel, as well as dedicated security at the airport. So we would check in, and then you would grab your coffee or your tea or a fresh croissant or pastry of some sort. So one person would see the crew members come in. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Sometimes we would bring you guys stuff. So when we would check in, oftentimes flight attendants would leave their bags with their purses and their flight bags on top of their suitcase. And in our flight bags, you may have your toiletry kit, you may have money, you may have your different shoes, because we have the heels we wear in the airport, and then we have our airplane shoes. So while flight attendants would be drinking coffee and eating a croissant, there may be someone at the table reading a newspaper who signals to someone else, yo, they left their bags. I had been on layover several times where flight attendants were robbed, and I've lived in Paris. So it is a thing to be aware of. because I do remember a flight attendant had to spend her whole layover, a whole day, in the embassy. Now, this doesn't happen all the time. Exactly. This doesn't happen all the time. This is just what I experienced. It's not the norm. It's what I saw. So you don't have to be on a fear alert. But this flight attendant, as travelers do, often have euros or cash. So if someone robs you, they now have cash. They had her passport, they had her airline badge, they had everything. And she had just taken out over 1,000 euros and had to have everything replaced. And this happens because as a hotel, sometimes you're off guard, especially as flight crews, because I believe the assumption is you're in Paris and this will never happen. I would say just be aware. And this is from someone who lived there, and it's just something that happens. Pickpocketing doesn't happen often in the US, possibly because you could pickpocket someone who has this. So you got to be aware in the US. However, in other countries, that's not something that's factored in. So I do have these interesting stories with Paris. Even the fact of me moving there and being encountered with 6 months to a year of rent up front, that's absolutely normal. That's normal for a lot of foreign countries, to be asked up front for 6 months to a year of rent up front, for a bank statement up front. It's just things that you learn from living abroad. Places in Germany, you must bring your own flooring. Like the person prior to you will take their flooring. So you will bring your flooring, whether it's linoleum or wooden floors. You don't know this until you experience it, but this is something that I learned because here we go. My favorite destination is me. However, oftentimes my favorites are because of the weather, but I don't have a one favorite. I love everything. I may love one of the people that checks me in at the hotel. I may just love the hotel. I may love a restaurant in said country or city. But there isn't a favorite because I did it all the time. So it was less of what is my favorite and more of what I appreciate about every space. There isn't even a least favorite. There's just places that there's nowhere I would say I won't ever go again. One experience doesn't designate how every experience would be. And I remember my niece saying, I don't want to go to London because my friend went and didn't eat good food. And I said, what does your friend's experience have to do with you? Anyone's experience is their experience. It has nothing to do with you. But you guys are young, broke college students. You wouldn't even know where to eat. And you had an aunt that lived there for several years. So to say you do not want to travel somewhere because of your 19-year-old friend saying she didn't have good food, well, you just didn't know where to eat. That doesn't mean you won't find it. And I find that anything in life. We all have our different experiences. However, your experience does not ensure that my experience will be the same. And oftentimes, why would I listen to you? You'll hear me often say this because I've had some stories. It comes down to me. And I had a man that formerly stood by my side, and he said, sometimes it's that person. Sometimes the person is just, they called that experience in for them. My experience is always going to be great. Even with the plane, my emergency landings, have I been assaulted? Technically I have, but I would never, whatever happened to me does not mean I would warn someone. Maybe that was for me to learn something. And All of these spaces that I speak about, I've been there several times. So if you've been to Paris once, it's a lot different than someone who's flown with an airline for 30 years and they've flown Paris every week for the past 15 years. Our experiences are different because then you have friends. Then you start understanding holidays and getting invited to people's homes. I often don't listen, well, I don't listen to anyone, but I don't listen to people who say, I went there and this happened. So what? What does that have to do with me? Places start changing the more that you're there. And I say that all the time about Paris. How I saw Paris prior to living there is not how I see it now. But that's because I was there. Visiting often feels like Disneyland. It's beautiful and you're learning. Most tourists don't leave the city center. To me, most of the things that I go to are outside of the city center in Paris. I would often go to the Senegalese restaurants and the Côte d'Ivoire restaurants and the West African restaurants that are on the outer arrondissements outside of the city center. I don't stay in the city center of Paris. So for someone to designate their experience, because they went for their 30-year anniversary, doesn't mean too much for me. These spaces often have so much more than what's written in a tour book, but that takes the courage to explore, and it does take courage to travel, and it takes even more courage to get outside of that tourist zone. I would never eat by the Eiffel Tower. It's for tourists. It's catered towards Americans. I'm not going to go there. And this is specifically for Paris. I'm not going in July. It just is a different space. But that's because I would fly it all the time and I lived there. And even while living in London, I could take the Eurostar and be there within an hour. And I would do that 3 times a month for several years. And I had a boyfriend who was there. So my experience was different. The people I was around was different. I see these places differently. And that's also how I see life. I'm telling you my experience. Doesn't mean it'll be your experience. It's just another experience. I would encourage anyone to just go and find the experience that works for them. It doesn't mean you're going to get pickpocketed. That's just what I saw. It doesn't mean anything. In fact, I don't ever expect anything bad to ever happen to me. However, expect a great experience and just go. And if someone's been there once, I'm not listening to you. I'm not listening to you. I definitely am not. But that's a part of my stubbornness. So, Seattle. So, okay, here's a great story, and then I'm going to close this out. So, I was on a flight to Seattle. Thank you, Kiki. I was on a flight to Seattle, and this is a hilarious story. I was working to Seattle because I used to like Seattle during the summers. I love Seattle during the summers, going and eating on the water, going thrift shopping. I like Seattle. And they have a lot of really cool vegetarian restaurants. So as I was on the flight, I was working in economy. Now let me drink some of my agua fresca. I was working in economy, but from economy, I could see this handsome, tall, brown-skinned man in this 3-piece suit. And I was at the back of the plane, so I was like, he seems cute. Okay. So I went on, we did the service, and as I was on the cart, I looked up towards first class. Now I was on a 737, and I saw the man, and I started to see that I recognized this guy in first class in this three-piece suit with some beautiful brogues, shined up shoes. I'm like, hey, I know him. Now I'm working from Newark to Seattle, so it's like a 5-hour flight. We finished the service in the back, and I walk into first class to talk to a friend. So I went up to first class to talk to the flight attendant in first class. And as I'm walking past, I definitely know this guy. I'm like, oh, I went on a date with this guy like 10, 12 years ago. Okay, this is strange because I'm seeing this man and we clearly know each other. So I said, this is strange because he hasn't said hi or anything, which it kind of stood out in my mind. Now, it had been quite a few years. It had probably been 13 or 14 years, but I recognized this brown gentleman in this beautiful three-piece suit. So I go to the back and I tell the other flight attendant, I said, I went on a date with this guy in first class and like, he hasn't said anything. It's like he doesn't know me. She was like, well, maybe you should talk to him. I was like, I gotta talk to him because I ain't never had this happen, ever. So I walk up to first and I lean down to a seat and I say, hi. We actually know each other. He said, we do? I said, yeah, we met in New York when I first started flying. And I would always go to New York because I was based in DC, but my sister lived in New York. So anytime I had a week off or 4 days off, I would fly to New York, stay with my sister, and we would go out and party, and then I would fly back to DC and fly. So we met in New York outside the Comedy Cellar. He said, we did? I said, yeah. We actually went on a date. He said, what's your name? I said, my name is Hope. He said, Hope, it is possible that this happened. The thing is, about 6 years ago, I was in a car accident and I actually went brain dead and I died. And I was in a coma for close to 2 years. So I don't remember anything prior to me awakening from my coma. And I was like, is this really happening? Of course this is happening, Hope. Of course this would happen to me, Hope. Of course. Like someone saying, yeah, possibly, but my ass was in a coma. Of course. So he said, you know, I was in this car accident and I was brain dead. And after I came out of a coma, I only know life after my coma. I said, oh, okay, because you were always very talkative. He said, are you laying over in Seattle? I said, I am. He said, yes, they didn't. And it gets even weirder. So he said, okay, well, if you're laying over in Seattle, would you like to come out with me? I'm going to a wedding and I don't have a date. Would you like to go out to dinner and go to the... Of course. What you know, I'm always ready. Yes, 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 and yes. So we land. He goes to his space. I go to the hotel. And I get ready and I tell my sister, because my younger sister was with me when I met him, and I called my sister and said, Sam, remember such and such? He was on my flight. And he said he didn't remember me. She was like, well, we have pictures with him. Did you find the pictures? I said, I'll find them after we go out. So we went out to the rehearsal dinner for his friend's wedding. And then we went to dinner. And he said, yeah, Hope, do you remember, what's his name? It's not Aries Spears. The other guy. The guy from, oh, I see his name. Anyway, there was another comedian what is that comedian? And he was hit with like a Walmart truck. What is this black comedian's name? It's not Aries Spears. It's Tracy Morgan. So he was one of the people that was with yes, he was in that same vehicle with Tracy Morgan. And so he suffered that same fate. He said, I was one of, I'm friends with him, and he's a comedian as well. And so I was in a coma, and they all had these huge settlements. Walmart had to pay them out these huge settlements. And he said, while I was in the coma, my son passed away. I was like, what? He said, yeah. When I came back to life, I had to be informed that I lost my son. I'm like, what? He said, yeah, that wasn't the easiest thing, because I didn't even know I had a son. Again, because of the coma and everything, he was unaware of all that he even had children. And so he had to be told that not only did he have a teenage son, but this teenage son passed away while he was in this state. I was like, golly, like little old me talk about, you don't remember me? He had to be told that his son had passed away. And I'm just thinking, whoa, this is incredible. Like, how do you the whole thing was such an incredible space to even factor. Exactly. And he, to me, was slightly annoying even prior to this. He was slightly annoying even prior to this. But after he had received this settlement, there was another space of he had received a large settlement. So now his way of showing himself was through the large amount of money that was given to him. Several millions. And that was a whole nother space. That is funny, dude named Dave. Yeah, I'm going back. Exactly, but you don't even know that you have a child. But then you're told that you do, but you don't. It was all of that. And yes. And he was annoying to me prior back in the day. Now it was even more annoying because when you lead with money, money, it creates choices. However, it doesn't designate that I will like you. And so there was seeing that of carrying large amounts, several thousands of dollars everywhere, and showing it and custom everything. And that was a whole nother level of like, okay, this won't be happening again. That whole evening was quite enriching. And I said, well, that's it for this. Yeah. Imagine that. Imagine, first of all, a girl being like, hey, we went out. I could have made it up for all he knew, but either way, that was a date in Seattle. The place we went to eat was really good. And I remember the rehearsal dinner, or the dinner with the friends was cool. It was cool, and it was everything about just that story was like, whoa. This is also why I'm in the state I'm in. I hear some really interesting facets of life. How do you even get back to life after that? Thank you, Divine. Yeah, he was. Here's the other thing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The other thing was the way his son passed was the same way his sister had passed, and it was a unique way that has only happened to a small amount of the population. It was something where, like, he was playing basketball and someone threw him the basketball and it hit his chest in a certain way where it threw off the rhythm of his heart, and he immediately, it was like, this is crazy. And this stuff happens to me often, so this is great. This will be in a book somewhere. However, the food is good, so I'm enjoying the food that we're having. But I don't think we'll be going out again. Okay. And thank you for this story. This was a great layover, but call me my Uber Black, because I'm ready. I'm ready to go back to the hotel. Exactly. I do meet them. But here's the thing. In that instance, he might have been carrying 20, 30 grand, which is crazy. There is a population that would enjoy that and would be pulled in by that, not me. So I get why you would do it. I just fall for your intellect and your personality. Money is always around me. It just is. It can easily be created. However, when it's used to be led with, that's not a space that entices me. And the first person that showed me the choices that money affords you is my father. So I'm not ever seeking a man to do that for me. I do it for myself. And for me also, money is, you can fart in a jar for money. Like, it does not mean that you're a cool person or a kind person. It's just a means of exchange. It does not designate anything else about a human being. Anything else. However, I've been in spaces to see how easily people can be bought. And oftentimes, if you're dealing with an individual with an amount of money that you've never seen before, you can easily be bought really inexpensively. If someone has a high net worth, and to me, wealth is anything over 100 million. Anything under, you're rich. But to me, I label it wealth over 100 million. 2 million, these things we can create this. And I've seen how easily individuals have been bought, whether it's their time, whether it's their body, whether it's their personality. I've personally seen how individuals will change themselves because of the thought of perceived wealth. And oftentimes people, to me, an individual doesn't know what wealth is. They can see what they think wealth is, but I've been around it, and oftentimes it's code words. It's often not seen. It's the wealthiest people I know with high net worths over that 100 million. You don't even know, because they're actually just in normal khakis and a shirt. You may see something like a watch, but it's often, for me, in certain code words, in certain tax codes, in certain private schools or boarding schools that their children go to, in certain places that they vacation, in certain restaurants that they frequent, it's never something that you tangibly see. But I learned this in my upbringing. That's how I feel. Others get caught up because they would see a label, which would be a designer label, which you can easily just get a knockoff. That doesn't designate wealth. And for myself, The presence of money does not equal the presence of compassion or kindness or intellect. It just means you have money. It doesn't mean anything else. It says nothing about you other than the choices you can make. And I am all for wealth. Listen, in all ways. For me, money is an exchange. I love the choices that money affords you. I love the fact that if a car is broken, when you have it, you can say, let me buy another car, or let me go to the dealership, or let me get it fixed, compared to, I don't know how I'm going to get this fixed. That's how I see wealth and money. It creates a choice, and I like choice. I do enjoy freedom. And I wrote about that because I'm working on a speech where, what do I want? What I love in life? I love freedom. Yeah, that could be the source of money. Freedom to me is freedom of time. Meaning I don't have to go and clock into a job and do this. No, I have my freedom of time. I have my freedom of choice, meaning if I want to live somewhere, I choose where I want to live because I have that freedom, maybe in the sense of a financial aspect. I have the freedom of how I show up in life, the freedom of my confidence. If I want to shave my hair off, I will. I feel free enough to do that. I don't feel restrained to maintain a look to create comfort from others. And yeah, good character. Listen, too many. While I lived in London, I was around a lot of these extremely beautiful women. Some notable, some not. However, the exchange was my time for your perceived wealth. And sometimes character wasn't always the most humanitarian direction. And I learned that because I thought I want to be around these individuals because of that. In reality, I actually like character. I like cool people because I'm cool. Meaning, I like an individual with style or their thought pattern that doesn't change because of who's in the room, or doesn't change because of the perceived amount of wealth, or doesn't change because of what they feel someone can do for them. I enjoy a person who's confident enough to show up as themselves regardless of where they are. And how quickly the belief of someone's wealth will change someone. I've seen it. And I'm talking about on yachts and in Monaco and these places. Sure, they're great. But there's an authentic space that money just can't replace. And there's creatives, whether they're designers or writers or just a person with what you would consider a regular job, that are absolutely cool people. I like that. Sometimes that happens to be in a wealth form with a monetary number, but it's not always. And maybe it just takes being in that space to realize that, because I have seen individuals completely trade whatever they are for money, or just to be around someone with it. And proximity to money does not mean you have money. It just means you're standing next to someone with it. That's what I found. Just because you are in a group of high net worth individuals doesn't mean you are high net worth yourself. It just means you're next to someone with high net worth. And what that means. So I share this to say, this is how you hear this in my voice. My strength comes from putting myself in situations and learning. This isn't just because I heard someone say this. Nah, I've been in these spaces. I thought that meant something to me. To be in the south of France or the yacht in Monaco or these places. Now, I do like traveling to these places, but what's more important to me is either me having it or me knowing what's important to me. Just because I'm next to them does not make me more of what I am. In fact, if I feel I need to stand next to someone to increase my self-worth, means I may not really have the self-worth I think I have. And a lot of these women that I was around, had a unique perspective that I learned from, because I'm grateful I came from a space of safety with my parents and a father that showed up and is here and has protected me and encouraged me and set a standard. I have a compassion and I understand a space of if that wasn't the case. I understand that too. And some of these young women, that was the exchange. I did not have that, so if a man's going to be in my presence, he's going to pay for my time. And this isn't like a little handbag. This is penthouses and bigger. These are extremely high net worth individuals. And what I learned from that, because even within that, I saw how these individuals would go to their room and shut the door and cry. That was their experience, but to the outside world, it felt like they had everything. And what I learned from that, because I've always just been the funny hope, like bring hope along. Yes, I know I'm cute. However, I've been this person in every space, and I'm not exchanging that for some financial gain. I can create the financial gain myself. In fact, I find it even more powerful to create financial gain from what you are, from what's unique about you, from how you do something, from a dream, from whatever it is. And I say this about my dad because I came from I was spoiled. This is why I demand a lot from life. But it also comes from a space of, my father said, I bought this, I can take it back. Sure. Then I will make my space where I can buy it and no one can take it back. Man or not. Dad, thank you. And I love you. But that's how I used it for my advantage. And what that means for me, because I'm not ever going to say money doesn't matter. Yeah, it does. And it matters how you allow it to matter. I don't think there's one size fits all. My mom always says I was the most expensive kid. Sure. Then I'll have to create a life where I am able to have what I want. I find that a space of power. It's not a space of bragging. This is just what I want. I'm not asking anyone to give it to me. I gave it to myself. Therefore, that is my standard. But also my dad saying, I bought this, I'll take it back. That's all right. That's all right, Dad. I will fight. Thank you. And I'll still take it. Thank you, Dad. You took me to Starbucks the other day. Give me your card. I'm still the daughter, and I will still allow you to pay. However, using life as the teacher in this way. And really experiencing that firsthand. This is why I know what's right for me. And this could change at any moment. However, that was a poignant experience because individuals often give the most of themselves for something as small as a financial gain, which you can always create yourself if you believe. If you don't believe, that's the starting space. And this all started from standing out from the copycats, because I started this live with seeing the other AI people here on the app and how I thought it was funny and interesting, and how often this is just showing what life is. Individuals will see how they can gain from something that seems to have a lot of attention at one time. And some people will make it and some people won't, but what does that mean? What does that mean to see something and say, I can gain from this and go for it? It may work, it may not, I don't know. That's up to you. But also knowing that when you bet on yourself, you always have something that works. You don't have to say, I'm just going to come on and do AI. There's something within us all that will always work. I don't know how long it'll take. I don't know the method, but there's something within us all that will always work. And I've chosen to give it my life's work to find out what that is for me, and maybe share it through words to implement some sort of confidence within others. So with that, be the copycat of the best version of you. Because the best resource is for someone to copy the best of you, whatever that looks like. And what would that look like for someone to say, you know what, I saw Divine Spirit Guide and I'm going to be just like her. That may be someone's manifestation of beauty or confidence or whatever they see fit. Because I don't see copycat as a bad thing. However, what are you putting out for people to copy? And that's within everyone individually. So, as always, be the reflection of love, because we all come from infinite sources of love. Show up. I'm back. I'm often with my family now, so I will show up and make it look good when you show up. I have this nice linen dress. I love linen and silk in the summer. And share your story to be the outline for someone else. Because some geese just flew ahead. Because when we share authentically and honestly, we're actually healing. There's something that healed in me by sharing these stories, and there's something that maybe someone else can take to aid in their life. As I say, I come on here. I don't have a designated time, but if you miss me, I upload all of my lives onto my YouTube page, which is Hope is Speaking. I'm going to upload some more today, but you can just go to my daily TikTok lives on YouTube, and they're all there. And what is my last impression? If you see a guy that's seemingly ignoring you, go say hi. Because he might have been in a coma and just doesn't remember that y'all went on a date. Maybe he's not being mean. Maybe he was in a car accident and lost his memory. And that's what I learned from that story. Sometimes people aren't ignoring you. Sometimes they just were brain dead. And they actually have no memory. And you can show them the pictures of your date, but to immediately think he is terrible because he ignored me, no. Actually ask, because I've had it happen. He might have just had his brain wiped and actually doesn't remember you, okay? Take it from Hope, because it's happened to me. So I'm going to take some laps. As I said, I'm at my parents' house. I'm going to go into the pool. And I love jumping in the water. It's not the ocean water, but it's the pool. So I have to get to my laps, and I will see you again. So Mag, it's good seeing you. I like how you always greet when you come in. Exactly. Never assume. Assumptions are always wrong. I can assure you. Assumptions are always wrong, because it's our formula and our brain. It means nothing. He don't like me. You don't know that. And I learned in that moment. Sometimes they were in car accidents. I enjoyed listening to you. Sunlight, sky dance all the time. So that's it. I'm as real as they come. Listen, I got some other stories. I got some stories, baby. So be ready. And this is the truth. Yeah. If someone's ignoring you, just ask them. They might have been in a coma. I love you all. Ciao.